Hi guys, today we are going to be working on mapping out and drawing out the skull for our project. Okay, so after you have chosen the skull that you want to do, that you want to draw for your picture, we want to work on mapping it out. Okay, now you might look at your skull and think that it is a lot wider. And so having a paper kind of go this direction might be the best choice to fit that. Okay, you might also look at the skull and see that maybe it's a lot taller. And so you'll turn your page to the side just like this in order to draw your skull out. Okay, we want to make sure that we're making the best fit. And so we want to choose the correct orientation for this. You might have yours going up and down or to the side. It doesn't matter as long as it's what is the best choice for your specific drawing. Okay, so you kind of want to plan ahead that way. And I'm going to be working on the cow skull, the one that has kind of like the darker horns that is in the slideshow that I sent for you all for the examples. And I'm going to start mapping out where things go. So the reason why I want to map out, and you know that I've been basically preaching this all year, is because this helps me draw to a nice size on my paper without drawing too big or too small compared to the size of the paper. That way I don't end up with something weirdly cut off, and that I'm making sure that I'm using as much paper as possible while still keeping the right proportions. Okay, so we did this with the leaf. We've practiced this with our sketchbooks, and now we're going to be doing it with this project as well. Okay, so I want to think about the proportions. I want to think about where things are going, and it really helps guide me as I'm drawing because then I'm using a lot more of my space, and I don't accidentally draw too small because I hate it when I draw the perfect drawing and I'm like, yes, this is so accurate, but it's too small for the paper. Oh, it's the worst. So in order to avoid that, we're going to start mapping. So the first thing that I am looking at is kind of how big the horns are compared to the skull of the cow itself. Okay, so I'm looking at it and it looks like the cow skull is taller than the horns are by just a little bit, right? So they're probably, I'm going to say maybe the bottom of the skull is going to hit right around down here at the bottom, roughly. So I'm leaving a little bit of space down here. Because of how this particular skull is, I am getting a little bit closer to the edge than I would, but we don't want it to be this close to the edge, okay? We still want to have a little bit of space. That way, if you choose to frame this later, or if it goes to the art show and it has to be matted, then we have space to kind of cover it up without making it look like we cut off part of the paper, okay? Very important stuff there. Okay, so I am going to put the bottom of the skull down here, I guess maybe his chin, maybe, right here. Okay, and then I'm going to say maybe the top of the head hits maybe right about here or so. And already I feel like I'm a little bit off center, so I'm going to kind of move this line over just a little bit, and I'm going to move this over a little here. Okay, so I have the top and bottom of the skull itself. Okay, now the horns of this are going to come up a little closer over here. Okay, and so they're probably going to, let's see, I'm just going to give like a super basic shape here. Right, so right now it kind of looks like a vase almost. Okay, so this is where the skull is going to go basically. And so I'm going to kind of look at where the horns are going to go and how far out they're going to come from the head itself, right? And so they come out pretty far, so I'm going to be using a lot of space here. And they're probably going to come up maybe right about here or so. So I have a little point up here. Again, I have a space towards the top. And then we're going to go the same way in the opposite direction. So this one's probably going to hit kind of around here maybe. And my lines are super light. Okay, so if it's kind of hard to see, it's because I'm drawing super lightly, which you should be too. That means that it's really easy to change them if you mess up. Mapping is just kind of an experimental activity in the beginning, right? So you're kind of laying out where you think things are going to go. And then once you actually get to the more serious drawing part, then you can make some smaller adjustments, okay? They're just kind of like, it's like having like a dot to dot. Okay, so I'm going to work on this other side over here. And again, I'm going to go ahead and turn my page. It's probably going to kind of come out this direction, maybe right around here. Okay. And in my picture, the left side actually looks like it's a tiny bit higher than the right side. Okay, so it's okay if there's a slightly different angle. Okay, and this is probably going to go right about here. So again, I have a little bit of space on the edge. I'm not on the edge itself. Okay, and this kind of comes back in here roughly. So I have the very, 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 very basic shape of my cow skull here. Okay, let me see if this will focus it a little bit better for you guys. I don't know if that actually helped. Nope. I don't know. I'm not feeling it, guys. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start working on the actual details. Okay. Once you have it mapped out, you can basically start with whatever makes the most sense to you. And I kind of feel like I need to start with the skull itself and then build not the antlers. I keep wanting to say antlers, the horns out from there. Okay, so for the cow skull itself, the top part is kind of rounded like this here. And then it kind of comes, there's a little bit of a dip, maybe more of a dip than that. Okay, and then it kind of comes up here. Same thing here. So this kind of dip, and then it kind of comes up and there's like a little bump on the side. Okay, and again, I'm keeping this pretty loosey-goosey to start off with. I'm not getting super intense with it. Okay, and then I'm going to work on the skull down here. So it actually kind of comes down this way, and I'm looking at where this section is, and this section will be kind of, this little indentation looks like it'll be right around here or so, right? So that we have that on both sides of the horn. Okay. Right, and then the eye kind of comes out, the eye socket right here, and then it kind of starts to angle back in this way. And then I'm just kind of working through this here. So then I have this kind of shape that kind of comes in down here, and then it gets much thinner down here at this point. So I'm kind of bring this down here just for a start. And I feel like I might have gone a little too angled in, but we'll see. Okay, I'm going to come back on this side over here. And again, I'm going to look at where this little dip is right here. Okay, and so it's about almost like there's like a line right here. There's not actually in the picture, but almost like there's a line. It's going to help me. So I'm going to have this indentation here. I'm going to bring this out this way, just like I see in the picture. Okay, and then it appears to me on the reference picture that these eye sockets are pretty close. I know the horns were like a slightly different angles, but the side here, which is like the eye socket, is kind of the same. So I'm going to just draw a little guideline here for myself to help me with that. Okay, so I have this section right here. Okay, so this kind of comes down this way. There we go. And then it comes out here. And then kind of angles down here like that. Yeah, that feels pretty good. Okay, and then this side was pretty subtle, but this side looks like it has a little bit of a sharper cut in compared to the other side. So I'm going to kind of bring this in. It has more of an angular look. Like so. And this just kind of tapers in this way. Okay, so it kind of comes in here, and then I have this kind of like weird section right over here. Okay, and then the chin, I guess it's the chin. I don't know, the muzzle? I don't know, I feel like this is his nostril. Whatever, the bottom of the skull. has kind of like, so this side is a little bit more squarish. I'm going to work on some of these angles a little bit, but the bottom part itself is a little bit more rounded. So I'm going to work that in there. Okay, so I have my beginning sketch. It's starting to kind of come together. Okay, and now I'm going to go ahead and work on the horns, and then I'll add some details to the actual face itself. So I feel pretty good about what I have going on so far. As far as my mapping goes on this side. So it kind of comes out here, and then it curls up this way and comes up to this little softened point here, right? And so I'm going to bring this down to make this a little thinner than what I originally had. And then it kind of follows this curve down like this, all the way down here before it gets wider down here. Okay, and I feel like I got a little bit, I need to make this a little more subtle. So I'm going to bring this down this way, like so. And then I'm going to erase my line right here, make sure my eraser's clean. Got some like blue and orange and pink on it. Artist problems, you know? Okay. And I'm going to erase this inner part. See if I'm happy with that. Yeah, I feel pretty good about this. I am going to come down here and add a little bit more shape to the bottom. So this kind of comes down here, and then it angles up a little bit, just a tiny bit, and then it kind of comes down a little bit more for this section here. Okay, so I'm going to erase this line and this line here. So I'm adding a little bit more shape to the horns that I see here. Okay, and then the actual line of the horn. So I have white bone that goes up to here, kind of like this. And then I have this middle section here where it's kind of like a brown color in my picture. So I'm going to go ahead and section that off just so that whenever I get to my dotting part, not my dotting part, I might do dots. I haven't officially decided. But when I get to the part where I'm adding the pen, I will know what parts should be lighter and what parts should be a little bit darker. I'm going to bring this over here. Okay, and then while I'm at it, I'm going to go ahead and add in where the highlights are, because the horns here on this this cow or bull or whatever is kind of shiny, right? So I have this little section up here, and it kind of comes to a point down here. So I know that that's lighter. There's a highlight. Okay, and then there's a little bit of a highlight kind of going this direction here, like this. Okay, and I'm not going to close off this edge because it's kind of weird over here. So I'm just going to leave this open. So I know this part here is definitely lighter and this part on the edges are definitely darker. Okay, now I'm going to work on this horn over on this side. Okay, so I have my little kind of bump up here. And this horn, I think it's a tiny bit rounder than this side is. So I'm going to kind of just bring this around here like this. Actually, I think I'm going to work on the bottom part. So this little spot here, and it kind of comes out almost like this bottom section here is straighter, and then it really angles up. Okay, and then I have my nice point right up here. Okay, so I'm making a little bit thinner than what I had originally mapped it out to be, which is totally fine. I'm going to come a little bit forward here and then bring this down here because it stays a little on the thinner side until we get to about here, and then it starts to kind of like really widen out. I feel like this is a lot bigger. Oh, that's a lot bigger. So I think what I'm going to do is I might extend. Actually, I'm going to finish this side and then we'll decide from there, right? You're always making adjustments when you're an artist. So this side here, I feel like it dips down a little bit more like this, and then it kind of rounds up on this side just a little before it goes into this line right here. Okay, so I'm gonna get rid of these extra tiny bits of pencil line over here. Okay, and then this side, I think it looks pretty spot on. I think the angle looks pretty good. Okay, so that kind of weird middle section hits right about here. Okay, and then we have a little bit of, it kind of angles in this way on this side. Okay, and then I have my little lighter space here, which kind of comes down here like this. And then I have that nice highlight right up here, which is a little bit thinner on this side. Okay, so I'm feeling pretty good about this. I think this needs to be just a little bit bigger. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of use the lines that I already have, but I'm going to make it a little bit wider out here. So I'm going to bring this down here a tiny bit. So just a little bit. And then I'm going to kind of extend this out this way, following that same arc that I have in my original drawing. Right? Because sometimes you might have the shape itself correct, but maybe you don't have the placement or the size correct. Okay, so then I can bring this in here. And then I'm actually going to curl this a little bit more in this way. So literally only like a millimeter off of my original line that I drew. Okay, and so this is about here. This still feels like this is really wide. Okay, hold on, let me make sure I'm measuring from the same spot. So it still feels like it should come in here. Let me check on my computer. Okay, so this one is a little bit wider than this one is, so that's fine. Okay, so I am gonna go ahead and work this one through here. And I think that I wanna kind of take this up a tiny bit this way. While I'm thinking about it. Okay, so I have that one there. And then I'm gonna go ahead and finish this one over here. So basically what I'm doing here is I'm just kind of echo lining this side here and I'm moving it out a little bit further. Okay, so I'm gonna have my nice point here. I'm gonna do some super sad erasing, but at least I'm not having to erase and redraw the whole entire thing because, you know, sometimes that happens. Definitely don't love it when that happens. Okay, so this one kind of, like I said, it angles around here. This kind of follows that angle, but it starts widening up. Kind of reminds me of like a banana shape, right? And then here it starts to really get thicker once we get closer to the skull itself. Okay, so I'm still gonna widen it out just a little bit more. Okay, so I'm gonna erase some of these inner lines here. There we go. Okay, and then I'm gonna go ahead and work back on those details. I'm gonna add those highlights in again. All right, so now that I have this done here, I'm going to, we'll add this highlight back in up here. Yeah, okay. So I have my highlight up here. And it goes right along this edge and kind of comes down here. And then it goes out this direction, right? And then remember we had this one where it kind of just looked like an open shape here. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, I'm pretty content with that because the horns are not exactly, they're not totally symmetrical. based on the picture. And that might be just because of how the horns naturally grew, or it might have to do with the angle of the picture, right? So I have my horns up here are drawn. I'm going to go ahead and start working on the details of the face. Okay. So I do want to bring this in. So here it kind of goes straight down. But for me, I want to shorten this here a little bit because I feel like I made it a little bit on the longer side. So I'm just bringing this in here. Okay, and then this kind of appears to angle down this way a little bit here. So again, I'm just making very small adjustments as I go, like this. Okay, and then this side here. So this side, I feel like, is a lot smoother. This side's got some crazy bumps going on, and that's how it is in the picture. But I do want to bring this, I want to see where these compare to one another. So I have this line here, okay, and then this one actually should be up just a tiny bit more compared to what I see in the picture. So I'm going to bring that in a small amount. Sorry, I got to change these angles again, you know. Okay. So bringing that in a small amount, and then it kind of starts to create like a soft angle in down here. Again, we have these kind of like weird bumps, okay, before it kind of straightens out down here. Okay, and I do have a little step in here that I'm going to draw. Okay, not too shabby so far. So I'm going to go ahead and sketch in the cavity for the orbital cavity here, which is like your eye section basically. And then if you need to, you can always make the picture bigger on your computer. You can kind of zoom in a little bit, or you can hit the present button to look at those details. Okay, so for the eye, it looks like it kind of comes down here and angles in about halfway, maybe a little less than halfway. And then I have this kind of section going here. I think this needs to be straighter this way. Maybe it needs to come out a little bit further. We'll try that. All right. So I have, yeah, I think I do like that better. Okay, so I have this drawn in here, and then I'm going to sketch out kind of this weird section here, and it's super light, so it's kind of hard to tell. But it looks like it hits maybe right about here. Okay, so it's very, very subtle, and I actually even think I made that a little bit too big. Okay, so I have this little bit of cut in here, and it kind of goes out here. Okay. Okay, and then on this side, it's a little bit more obvious based on the lighting. So we have this, it kind of comes out here. We have this bump. Okay, and then this one kind of comes down this way here. And then we have almost like a triangular look to it. So I have this kind of section like this here where it's darker. Okay, and then I have these lines that come down from here. And they, let's see, that midsection looks like it hits right about here or so. So I'm drawing this kind of like weird triangular thing that I have in the center. Just like so. Okay, and then it kind of comes up and it hits about halfway between the eyes here. Right, so I have this kind of like shape that goes along here and goes out this way. And this one has a little bump over here on this side. And it comes out here. And then it kind of angles back towards this. right? And then this line will come down here. We have a line that goes in the middle. Just like this. Okay, and then I'm drawing this line, so this kind of line that comes down this direction. And it kind of angles down here. So maybe I need to bring this down just a tiny bit. Just like that. Okay, and then this line kind of does the same thing. It looks like it's a little bit higher though, so maybe this needs to be angled out. This kind of comes around it here. And lines up right about here. So that means I'm going to take this corner down this way a little bit. So I'm getting all of these little breaks and fissures in the skull. Okay, so I have this part here, then I need to start working down here. So I have this darker area that kind of comes out here. It gets very close to this edge. I think I had the original right. We'll go back here. So it kind of comes out here, angles all the way down here almost, maybe a little higher. Okay, and then we have this kind of section right here like this. And then this little spot right here is really, really dark on mine. So I'm gonna kind of draw this line here. So we have this weird section that looks almost in the middle, but not quite. And this piece comes right down here. So I have this lighter space down here. Okay, so this is still the bone. This part is just a lot darker. Right, and then I have this kind of like white space here. Okay, so I'm gonna finish this side up here. I'll be right back. Okay, so now I went through and kind of worked on this other side. I made a few adjustments here, feeling a little bit better about it. And I'm going to go ahead and double check and make sure I have all of the details. Okay, so one of the things that I'm seeing is that I have these lines that kind of go in this direction here. I have some dots that go along this side here. So I'm going to make sure that I have those going in here. And so on this side, I notice the dots kind of come down this direction. And then I have dots on this side that kind of seem to come a little bit higher up here and angle down this direction. Okay, so kind of like almost where the brow bone would be, I guess. Do cows have eyebrows? I don't even know. Okay, but I have these little lines that I sketched in here to help inform me when I'm drawing these dots in here. Okay, so I have kind of like this dot right here, and then it kind of a couple of smaller dots. And then I have it kind of angles this way just a tiny bit right here. So I have those dots. And then this one up here is kind of more of just like a weird dark spot. So I'm going to kind of just sketch that in there like that. And then I have a couple of dots that kind of go below it down this direction here. So I'm kind of just getting those in so I have them later on. Okay, and the other thing is there's some different forms going on up here with the head, right? So I have kind of like this almost like I think I went a little too high there. It's almost like kind of like a shadow on this side here. And then we have kind of what looks like a little bit of a, not quite a line, but sort of. And then I have this little area here that's a little lighter. And then this side's a little on the darker side. And then this side kind of comes in here like this. Okay, so I'm just adding in the light and dark areas that I see here on my drawing. Okay, so I'm gonna go through, make sure I have all of that done, all of that information down here. I have this stuff. I know that this part here is kind of dark. Actually, I'm bring this up just a little bit more. Okay, and so this will be like the step one part of drawing it. Make sure you have all of those details in. If you have areas that are lighter or darker, it's really helpful to kind of just sketch those in because we're going to be erasing our pencil lines when we're finished anyway. Okay, so once you have this, you'll be able to move on to your pen technique. And remember, you can choose any pen technique, just choose one of them though. Okay, so we'll go ahead and pause here, or stop here rather, with having our drawing done, and we will move on to our ink stuff in the next video.